concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. I'm very happy to have you with me here on a Monday evening for some FPV talking, some FPV questions and answers, hopefully correct answers. I think I have all my technical BS sorted out. Here, let's see. Ready? All right, here we go. Boom. Nope. Okay, hang on. Hang on. We're going to get this. I know what's gone wrong. Hang on. We're going to get this. A feature chat overlay here. There. And here. Okay, and... Okay. How about now? Yeah. Oh, I just clicked on that message randomly. Okay, now we got some. Yeah, we got it. I got my chat overlay working again. There's only one thing I need to make sure that this goes off correctly. There we go. I will always upvote a Jeremy Clarkson quote. Free Lojo. Welcome to the live stream. I guess I have to answer this question from Matthew Deathlefson, and that's what we're going to do here. We are just going to answer questions. I'm going to take your questions. Man, OG Top Gear. There's nothing like OG Top Gear. Nothing like OG Top Gear. I've often wondered how could you recreate that magic if you wanted to. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one. If you liked OG Top Gear, you should owe it to yourself to check out Throttle House. Throttle House on YouTube. They have a lot of that same energy at a much lower budget, but if they're, it's the soul of the show that matters most, and the money comes later. That's something people say when they have money. No, it's true. The soul of the show comes first and makes people love you, and then you find a way, hopefully, to get them to give you money, and then you try to make maybe a more expensive show without losing the soul. We're talking about Top Gear. I'll be taking your questions in the chat. Oh, Bubby's here. Bubby FPV. Hey, Bubby. This look familiar, Bubby? This look familiar? Bubby, when I went out to California, to Florida, same thing. When I went out, increasingly not the same thing. When I went out to Florida to shoot Rotor Ride episodes, Bubby built this. Bubby stayed up one night. He was like, do you need a spare quad? Because I had one Rotor Ride quad, and then I had like 3 of my own quads. And Bubby was like, I'll build you one. And I would never ask someone to build me a quad. But if someone says, I'll build you one, I'm like, okay. I'm not going to say no. And then Bubby stayed up and he almost finished building. Didn't quite finish building it. But I didn't end up needing it, so it was all good. And then I finished building it and used it to test the walk snail system today, so it all came out at the end. I know. I mean, I feel like it was above and beyond that we spent all day shooting, I think, and then Bubby was like, yeah, I'll go by the warehouse, I'll get some parts, I'll build you a quad. I was like, well, I mean, if you really want to, I'm not going to tell you no. But, yeah. Alex FPV says we want to know your first thoughts on the new walk snail gear and when is the review coming? The review dropped like an hour ago. My review of the new walk snail gear dropped like an hour ago, so it is coming an hour ago. If you find a way to make those verb tenses work for you. I was not the first one. Let's see. I was not the first one to drop that. Let's see how I'm doing. Ooh, I got to catch up. I got to catch up. All right, we'll check back at the end of the live stream. Remind me to check back at the end of the live stream. And let's see if I've caught up with everybody else yet. I always hate being late, but my video just wasn't ready. So what are you going to do? Well, that's what you're going to do. I will be taking your questions here in the chat. I'll be taking your questions here in the Discord. Of course. Of course. Because these Discord people are my patrons. I owe it to them, literally. And I'll be taking your questions if you want to leave a super chat. That is the way to guarantee that I read your message on stream. Hit the $sign down at the bottom and leave a super chat. And I'd just like to reiterate, maybe I'm going to make a habit of this. If I don't read your message in the chat, because the stream is very busy and I obviously can't read all the messages, and if you don't want to or can't leave a super chat, by all means email me. My email is jb@joshuabardwell.com. I answer almost all the emails that I get. I try to remember that there's always a human. A lot of people get overwhelmed by the number of messages they get, and I understand how that could happen, but I always try to remember that on the other end of that email, there is a human being who needs help, and try to help them. So if I don't get you on the live stream, anybody's welcome to email, and I will get to you. Probably. I don't get to 100% of my emails. Every so often, there's an email that I'm like, I'm just not going to answer this one. It's, if I feel, it's never a question. If you email me and you ask me, hey, I have a problem, here's that, I need to solve it. I'll be like, I won't ignore that. But if I get an email from somebody who's trying to pitch me a business idea, sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to, because I've emailed people, creators and so forth, and they never respond. And they don't respond because they're overwhelmed with emails. And no one could possibly, I don't know why I do it. Just do. So I never have my feelings hurt when they don't answer. And so occasionally I take that privilege, but almost never. So let's start with this question. It's the "you give me quad" email. Yes, no, that's true. That's true, Mike Bergman. I do sometimes get the, "Hey, I'm poor. Can you give me a quadcopter?" And I feel for those people, but also generally I try to, I usually give things away by random drawing and not by selecting a particular person. Matthew Dethlefson says, "I just finished building the DJI FPV kit, flew it for the first time, and it was so cool." Matthew Dethlefson, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm really happy for you. There you go. Let's take a look at some questions here. We definitely need a car channel on the Discord. All right, let's see here. Interesting. Uh-oh. Looks like my Discord server has too many users. And permissions are not working right. Uh-oh. I can fix that real quick. We're going to prune these users. I'm going to do this real quick before I forget to do it. And all my... Oh, yeah, no, I have 5,000 members. It's time to prune. Prune members, last seen more than 30 days ago. Prune. All right, we'll see how that brings it down. Yeah. Okay. We gotta, okay. No one has compared the Walksnail Pro Night Vision with the HD0 Micro V2 night performance, which in my experience was pretty damn good. That's an interesting point, Richard Heath. I would be interested in doing a comparison of the Walksnail Pro, the Caddx Polar, and I guess the HD0 the Micro V2. I believe I have all of those cameras, so it would be an interesting test. Banana Man wants a recommendation for an ESC with good power delivery and can handle a lot of voltage spikes. Any recommendations? I mean, the best way to handle voltage spikes is to have a capacitor. So definitely need some capacitors. Or a big good capacitor. Acon makes very durable ESCs. They're generally very, very good. Let's see. Who else makes a great ESC? The Teco ESCs. I'm not sure those are ultra reliable. Redux Air. There we go. Redux Air makes a good one. Although generally they are 20 millimeter. Although maybe that's not a downside for some people. How many people are... What's the server down? Prune. I said prune. More than 30 days ago. Pruning will kick... Shut up! Pruning will kick 0 members who have not been seen on Discord in 30 days and are not assigned to any roles. Okay. And only 295 members. You guys have to see this. I can't believe this is true. So my Discord server has over 5,000 members. And I think there's a max. But all of those members are active in the last 30 days. That doesn't seem possible. Time to start kicking people. Who are we going to kick? No. And only 295 people have not been seen in 7 days. That doesn't seem possible. That doesn't seem possible. Do I need to start paying money for my Discord server? More than a single server can have up to 500,000 members. Oh. Server member cap increases. Server member cap. What is my member size limit? I don't know. I'll have to solve this later. Jeez. I'll have to solve this later. I don't know. G Straddle. G Straddle, thank you for a... Say, how do I... Oh, get rid of that. I don't know how to get rid of that. There needs to be a button to click. Oh, it worked. Oh, interesting. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, great. G Strondel, thanks for £2. How to set Betaflight to ARM at plugin, not for a quad. Yeah, G Strondel, so what you want to do is you want to use a flight controller in something that isn't a quadcopter, and you need it to be armed so that it like does all its PID control stuff. There is no way to do that. Betaflight, I mean, short of rewriting the code. The answer is that you rewrite the code. There are so many checks in Betaflight to prevent arming unintentionally. That is like the cardinal sin of a multi-rotor flight controller, is to arm the quadcopter when it wasn't supposed to. So it's really a lost cause to try to trick Betaflight into doing that, because Betaflight in its core, in its DNA, doesn't want to do that. If you have a flight controller that you need it to arm, what you should do is you should get something like a little Arduino Nano, and you should write a sketch that emulates an S-bus signal, which an Arduino can do. And the sketch will, when power is applied, will wait 30 seconds or however long for the flight controller to power up. And then the sketch will emulate an S-bus signal that sends an arming switch. Okay? That's or solve the problem a different way. Betaflight will not arm without a valid receiver signal, and then an aux channel tells it to arm. Heart of America FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. Don't see a message from you, but thank you for your donation. What do your demographics look like? Who is the average fan of FPV drone stuff? Well, I mean, we can look at my demographics. Let's see what I can show you. Let's see. Demographics, top geographies. I think this page is fine to show. Here are my demographics. Let's see. Videos growing your audience. That's interesting. New viewers who return. Oh, that's interesting. These videos brought in new viewers, but then they didn't come back. Other channels that my audience watches. Interesting. Ooh, RC test flight, huh? content my audience watches. Interesting. Let's see here. Geographies. 39% of my audience is in the United States. Hang on. Let me zoom in here. 39% of my audience is in the United States. 6% in Germany, UK, Canada, Australia. Age and gender. 98% male. We got a real sausage party in here. You can't see that. 98% male. We got a real... And then here's the age breakdown, if that's interesting to you. Younger than I would have guessed. Almost all of my viewers are younger than me. I guess that makes sense. That's why they're all better pilots. Anyway, there you go. Thank you, Heart of America, for the donation. GT Mercury. What's your favorite... thank you for a $5 super chat, GT Mercury. What's your favorite 3.5 to 4 inch quad for outdoor freestyle? I've really liked the GEPRC Smart 3.5 in the past. It is reasonably durable, although nothing is absolutely bulletproof, and a lot of fun to fly. I haven't in the 4 inch class. The Catalyst Machine Works Shocker was really fun, pretty durable. I suspect if I were to, I got that one to review. I suspect if I were to build my own, that I would pick a less complicated frame, but that's still pretty good. Those are ones I have personally really enjoyed. And now, oh, there we go. Praxis Gamer wants to know, do I need to remote ID my drones for flying in my backyard? Praxis Gamer, in the United States, the rule for individuals to comply with remote ID doesn't go into effect until September of this year. So until September of this year, the answer to that is no. You don't need to do that. In September of last year, manufacturers were of complete ready-to-fly drones were required to implement remote ID. So, for example, if you have a DJI Avata, it will require you to plug in your phone and do some remote ID BS before it will fly. If you have one of those drones, then you would know, because it would be telling you you need to do this thing, and it wouldn't take off until you do it. As far as self-built drones, there's nothing you need to do until September. However, come September, the FAA will expect you to have remote ID broadcasters, remote ID devices on your self-built drones flying in your backyard. The fact that you're in your backyard doesn't get you out of it. The fact that you're flying below a certain number of feet doesn't get you out of it. Come September, the FAA expects you to comply. Marley wants to know, what will be the best setup if we use 3 DJI V2 all unlocked? 2 of them are running on Vista, 1 on the air unit. We want to fly at the same time. I think you should be fine to all be on 50 megabit per second, be on channels 1, 2, and 3, and fly. I am positive you'll be fine if you're all on 25 megabits per second and go on channels like 1, 4, and 7. When you fly, make sure that you are standing at least, say, 10 or 15 feet from the other pilots. Okay? If 2 pilots stand close together, you'll get interference. Although if you have enough channel separation, it won't be too bad, but it's best practice for DJI. DJI pilots need to practice social distancing to avoid interfering with each other, not for any other reason. You shouldn't really even have to reduce your output power. I feel pretty confident 3 DJI pilots could all be at 1200 milliwatts as long as they do their channel separation and be fine. At least at 25 megabits per second, and I think probably at 50 megabit per second as well. Bubby FPV, for recreational use, anything under 250 grams is exempt from remote ID. So the Babito is off the hook. However, for commercial use, it does require remote ID. So in other words, under the current rule set, there is no feasible way to fly a Babito for 107 purposes, which is, of course, stupid. And realistically, see, here's the thing. I was going to say, realistically, people will just break that rule. But when you're talking about commercial operations, that's not always an option. Because if you are, hypothetically, if you're shooting a video for a YouTube channel and you decide to break a rule, probably no one will care ever. But if you are on a movie set, or if you're on a commercial set, or if you're doing a job, for a client, then there may be permitting and insurance and all kinds of nonsense. And if you fly an aircraft and you're not complying with the rules, that could get in the way of that. And a lot of professionals just won't do it. So if the rules say that to fly an aircraft, regardless of weight, fly a remote control aircraft, regardless of weight, you have to have a remote ID on it, then some 107 operators simply won't break that rule. They just won't fly that aircraft. But it's stupid. I mean, I think we can all agree the Babito is absolutely harmless in every way possible. There is no world in which the Babito could do, like, the worst thing a Babito is going to do is tangle up your hair. I volunteer to have Bubby fly a Babito into my balls. I'm going to be wearing, like, pants, for the record. It's going to be fine. Probably not it would just be unseemly. I probably would be, like, okay with just making a point by taking a Babito to a naked ball sack. But I don't think it would hurt that much. But I wouldn't do it because that's inappropriate. My live stream's just been... What? It's been demonetized right now? Fabio Pansera, good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. Fabio points out the option of flying it into my hair was not available. True. Anyway, it's I hope that it changes. I hope that it eventually changes. Do you fly your yard and lift off to practice in real life? Django FPV asks. Nah, I usually just fly in real life. Is that the only place it could get tangled in hair? Asks CMAC. No. No. Papa Midnight wants to know. Thank you for being a patron, Papa Midnight. Papa Midnight's over in the Discord server with all the other patrons. You can join him if you join my Discord. Join my Patreon. Link down below in the video description. Papa Midnight asks, I have a DJI FPV drone. I get ESC communication errors sometimes, and it keeps me from arming. Other times, it turns on and flies fine. What would trigger this? Papa Midnight, you either have a failing ESC or the connection between the flight controller and the ESC is like loose. The first thing you have to do is ask yourself whether you're going to fix this yourself or whether you're going to send it to DJI to get it repaired. Most DJI owners would just send it to DJI for them to repair it. If I was in your situation and I didn't want to send it to DJI for repair, the first thing I would do is I would go on YouTube and I would look up a teardown video for the DJI FPV drone, and it will show you how to completely disassemble the drone down to component parts on a table. And I would look at that video, and then I would again ask myself, do I want to fix this myself, or do I want to send it to DJI? And if after watching that video, the answer was still, I want to fix this myself, I would start disassembling the thing, and I would look for like a disconnected cable, like a ribbon cable came loose or something. And then after all that, it might actually just be your ESC is broken and needs to be replaced, in which case you have to send it to DJI. So you see what I'm saying is probably the right thing to do is to just send it to DJI and get them to fix it. Okay. We've got a super chat here from Mike Bundy. Where's your favorite Buc-ee's? Mike Bundy, thank you for a $2 super chat. Mike, I've only been to like 2 Buc-ee's. 3 maybe. There's a Buc-ee's between here and Nashville. There's a Buc-ee's north of Atlanta. And there's a Buc-ee's south of Atlanta. And I've been to those. I don't know if I have a favorite of those. Buc-ee's are all similar. The one north, the one on the way to Nashville, it has a pretty big parking lot that I like. I don't know. I don't know. Part of the joy of a Buc-ee's is that you can you get a fairly standardized experience as you go to all of them. You know, you can count on the Buc-ee's experience. Teddy Gentile has an interesting question in the YouTube chat. I crashed my quad and got it stuck in a tree and lost the antenna, so I used one of the 2 antennas from a DJI Air unit. Will this work? Which antenna got lost, Teddy? Was it the control antenna? Was it the video antenna? The key thing with antennas is that they be tuned to the correct frequency. So the DJI Air unit antennas are 5.8 gigahertz and left-hand polarized. So if you had a video transmitter, if you lost your video transmitter antenna, it is probably also a 5.8 gigahertz video transmitter, and it might work. Although the polarization of the antenna, typically analog video transmitters are right-hand polarized, and DJI video transmitter is left-hand polarized antennas. So that polarization is going to hurt your range. Yeah, so Teddy, if it was the VTX, then you're probably in the right frequency, but you probably have a left-hand polarized antenna on the DJI, and you probably have a right-hand polarized antenna on the goggles, which is hurting your range. Time Chaser says, I just want to say I appreciate your work and keep us up to date with all the things at FPV. Thank you, Time Chaser, for a $10 super chat. Appreciate that. C-Drums wants to know, is there one remote idea unit that you can use on all your quads? C-Drums, for recreational users, I believe you can swap the unit between the quads. For 107 users, I think the answer is no. Jean Miranda asks, thank you for a $20 super chat, Jean. I have a question about Crossfire, 50 hertz versus 150 hertz. I've been flying only 150 hertz for a few months now. I would like to go further, but when I change to 50 hertz, I don't see that I get better LQ or RSSI. So Jean, the RSSI I think is going to be the same either way. The signal strength just is the signal strength. So I wouldn't expect RSSI to change when you switch from 50 to 150. Regarding LQ, I wonder if what's happening is that your LQ is like basically at 99% all the time anyway. So switching from 50 to 150 doesn't matter. if you were to switch to 150 and then fly somewhere where you started to see LQ drop, so say LQ got down to like 90, and then you switch from 150 to 50, you should see the LQ jump back up. The other thing, I assume that you don't have dynamic. In which case, that would also explain why you don't see any change, because it's switching for you. Comic Sniper, thank you for 220 Canadian. How many quads should you build to go racing? I mean, as many as you can. How many quads are you going to break? I mean, I feel like if you show up at a race with one quad, there's a very good chance you're not going to finish the race. I've seen pros show up with 10, 15 quads. That's beyond what most people are going to be able to accomplish. I think 2 or 3 is a good number for like somebody who's not like super super high hardcore. Bubby in the Discord says he had a bad experience with somebody's thumb grippies. Let's talk about this for a second. He says, I was at a race and picked up someone's radio with thumb grippies. I was moving the sticks around and they exploded in my hand. The plastic they use is awful. I feel like that's a broad conclusion to draw from one experience. That, like, who knows what that person's thumb grippies had been through? I mean, we don't know. But I would need more than one data point to conclude in general that the thumb grippy resin was defective in some way. Thumb grippies is... I know a ton of people who use thumb grippies, and I never heard this story from anybody else. So I wonder if that's a little bit of an overgeneralization. I guess it's still resin. I mean, it's not going to last forever. Worth keeping in mind. Kickflip wants to know. Thanks for being a patron, Kickflip. Asks in the Discord server, what happens if I have a 3-position switch? In one position I have like turtle mode, in the second position I have like anti-gravity, and I switch by mistake to turtle mode? Will it knock down the quad? No. If you enable turtle mode while you're flying, nothing will happen. Turtle mode will only kick in after you disarm, so there's no worry there. Black Jungle, as always, a joy. A joy with the memes. Very nice. Very nice. Danzilla says, sounds like Bubby broke someone's radio and then tried to blame the plastic. That's probably not what happened. That guy in the Discord asks, if I'm building a new long-range quad with the O3 air unit, what frames should I be looking at in your opinion? Should I modify my Chameleon TI to fit the O3? So, like, I would say that, like, I have a Chimera 7 Pro, and it's really great what iFlight has done to fit the air unit, the O3 air unit, into that frame, a custom heatsink, etc. That being said, they sell that custom heatsink as a separate piece, and you could put that on other frames. And I find the iFlight Chimera frame to be, like, with the side plates and the narrow, it's a little difficult to maintain and not really 100% my style. I'm glad for the one that I have. The day that I crash it and break it and have to tear it all apart and to get into it to fix it, I'm going to like it a lot less. So I think if I were picking a 7-inch frame, that wouldn't be my first choice. But I don't fly 7-inch enough to have like a strong opinion on what a good 7-inch frame is. Like, I know, I know every time this topic comes up, the Super G is mentioned as a good 7-inch. This is not the 7-inch one. People seem to like the Super G7 quite a lot. There's the 10. Is it the Plus? Is that the 7? I think it is. Chris Rosser's AOS 7. If you like the AOS style of build, Chris Rosser's AOS 7 could be good. Hello, Chris. Why do you make it so hard to see your product? Let's see. Is it the Crocodile 7? Yeah. The Gep RC Crocodile 7. Comes to mind. I don't like when the arms go through the inside like that, though. Although it's a 7-inch, so you have a lot of choices. You got a lot of flexibility there. These are some. What even makes a good 7-inch frame? Like, what features do you look for? Asks Bubby. So you know, for me, I want an open frame that's easy to maintain. And then the next thing I think you look for in a 7-inch is it's going to be able to not give you like a ton of problems with jello and stuff. Like Bad for Life says the AOS 7 is solid as heck for tuning. As you get into the 6 and I think 7 inches where tuning starts to become like vibration and so forth becomes a real issue. And you could get a lot of issues with jello and resonance and so forth. So, like, and unfortunately, you're not going to be able to tell that just by looking at a product page. You really need to talk to people who fly it or look at who's flying it. So, I'm really skeptical of situations where they take a 5-inch frame and they just put 7-inch arms on it and they call it a 7-inch. I'm not 100% sure that's what happened with we just happen to be looking at the Super G right now. Because if you just take long arms and stick it on a 5-inch frame, I think you're potentially going to get problems with resonance and so forth. Aber the Ham suggests the Pyrodrone Source 1 7. Source 1, of course, always a very, very cost-effective build. But again, we do have a situation here. Is this just a Source 1 with 7-inch arms? And is that going to give a good sort of vibration-free result? Maybe. I don't know. Here's the AOS Falcon. This frame seems to have enough people who support it and enough accolades that it seems to me like it might be a safe bet. We got another suggestion here. Now, I don't know this frame. Now the patrons are throwing up suggestions. Jam Iceland says this is 100% win. 7-inch design. The SAF 7 for $60. That's not bad. So I personally would look for an open-sided design that's easy to maintain. And then I would look for a reputation for good flight characteristics and durability. Although on a 7-inch, hopefully you're not going to crash it very much. And I would buy based on that. Um, Ooh, Shocker Tank 7-inch. That's a good one. That could be a better 7-inch than it is a 5-inch. Because when you get up to 7-inch, the complexity is less of an issue because you're hopefully going to crash it less. And although I was complaining about the Chimera being difficult to maintain, the Shocker is not the end of the world to maintain because you just flip it over and work on it from the bottom. Is it a good 7-inch, though? I mean, it's got triangles. That's a good start. We got a question here from Alex FPV. Alex asks, Adam RC now ships ready-to-fly, iNav-ready FPV wings. I think we all agree and would love some wing content. Maybe a shootout with a new and most popular 3 or 4. Thank you, Adam, for the donation. It's an interesting idea. Zippy, thank you for a $5 super chat. First long trip with my quads. I think I have the basic necessities and spares packed. Anything out of the ordinary I should think about? Out of the ordinary. What's something that you're going to overlook? Make sure that you have everything that you're going to need to charge batteries. Like if you need any special adapters. If you've got a charger that plugs into the wall, make sure you've got the power cord for it. Like if you're used to charging off a field charging pack, you might not have that power cord handy. Steve Drakes in the Discord suggests screws and prop nuts. Spare prop nuts, good. SD cards. Easy to forget your SD cards. I love this. So I have this little SD card. It's a credit card holder, basically, and SD cards slot into it. It costs like $6 or $7, I think, on Amazon. You can 3D print your own, but I prefer to just get the injection molded ones. Oh, no, there went the live stream. And what I like to do is just, I put them on a key ring like this, because I have a lot of SD cards. And one of them is for footage. So SD cards that have footage on them that I haven't offloaded go in this one. And then blank SD cards go in this one. So I'll take an SD card out of one of these. I'll put it in the camera. I'll shoot with it. And then when I seldom fill up the card, but I'll be like, okay, I'm going to take that card out because I don't want to lose it. Then I'll put it in the blue holder. And then, you know, at the end of the day, when I'm back at the hotel or the Airbnb, I'll take the cards out of the blue one and I'll copy them over to my hard drive. And then I'll put them back in the orange one and I'll know that I've offloaded that footage. So, those are some things that you might forget. Do you think releasing Flow Sack will drive more viewers to Flow State? Asks Cliff Field. Yeah, you mean the Bobito to the nutsack? I doubt it. I doubt it. Praxis Gamer. Wow, Praxis Gamer, you've been busy. All right, Praxis Gamer, I'm going to answer the question, and you can stop asking it. What drone do you recommend to get a GoPro on under 250 grams? I don't see any way to carry a full-size GoPro on a quad and be under 250 grams. A GoPro alone is 120 grams, let's say. That's nearly half your budget. Just forget about it. It's not going to happen. A naked GoPro? Maybe. Even a naked GoPro, you can still struggle to get that under 250 grams, but it can be done. So the answer to your question is none. The answer to your question is that if you need to stay under 250 grams, you absolutely have to be looking at things like a naked GoPro, an Insta360 Go, or other lightweight options. Even a naked GoPro is a little difficult, depending on how heavy it is. Some of them are lighter than others. Honestly, the O3 Air unit is really a rock star in the sub 250 category, because you're already going to have a video transmitter, and it's a really decent HD cam, and you're not having any additional weight. So would I replace a GoPro with an O3 on a 5-inch? Maybe. For just like YouTube stuff? Sure, I'd consider it. I do like GoPros. I like the way GoPros look. I am tired of breaking GoPros and buying new GoPros, though. And I do like lighter weight builds. But on a sub 250, you really have to find a way to make up that weight. We got a question here from Quixo. Let's see here. How do I make this full screen? Is that how I'm going to do it? No, I don't want to do it like that. Can I pop it out? I cannot pop it out. Oh, here's what I'm going to do. Just going to put it in a new browser window. Yay. We got a question here from Quixo. Quixo has a Darwin FPV Baby Ape Pro with some adjustments. Oh, wonder what kind of adjustments they are. Everything was working fine until today when I went flying. 2 motors are not spinning. When I plug the battery in, I feel the beeps all together with those 2 at the end. When I arm, they twitch a little bit, then there's a different sounding beep and they stop moving. You probably have a fried ESC. It's impossible to say for sure. Oh, hang on, what do we got here? So the motors are not spinning, they're just twitching. Yeah, I mean, either have a bad motor, a fried motor, or a fried ESC. Since 2 motors died at the same time, seems likely that it's a fried ESC. Yep, so no. It's probably time to replace the ESC. I mean, that's the short version. I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear. That is, unfortunately, probably the correct answer. Let's see here. Now I have to get back into the... Yeah, I've lost track of the channel. Where's the live stream chat? There it is. Francis Bizzogo says no gyro accelerometer found after flashing the SpeedyBee F405 V3. Thank you for a 220 Canadian super chat, Francis. Most likely you've either flashed the wrong target or you did not apply custom defaults after flashing. So, oh, nope. Here we go. So when you flash the SpeedyBee F405, let's just see what we got here. So here is the target for SpeedyBee F405 V3. Like, I can't be 100% sure, but that sure looks like the target. If you flashed SpeedyBee F4, for example, that might not work. Clearly, this is the target for SpeedyBee F405 V3. After you flash it, Betaflight will pop up a window the next time you connect asking, apply custom defaults, and say yes. If you don't say yes to that, then you also will have no gyro. Okay. Sorry for the USB noise. I forgot to mute the computer. Apologies. Eagle One says, I love how you have a drone always ready to be plugged in. Not exactly. It's just a spare flight controller. Annoying. Is there ever a reason not to apply custom defaults? Asks Technically Tom. Why doesn't this happen automatically? Tom, that's a good question. So let's talk about apply custom defaults. When you flash Betaflight, what are you really doing? Here in the firmware flasher tab, we have all these flight controllers we can flash, right? And these are board-specific targets, meaning that there's information about the flight controller itself stored in this target that will be applied after the fact. But if I look for how are the generic targets? Can I flash a generic target? Can you flash a generic target straight from here? I don't know if you can. Interesting. So what is happening when I apply custom defaults? What's happening is, let's see what happens if I flash this and I don't apply custom defaults. So I'm going to flash this flight controller. And I am not going to apply custom defaults. And what's going to happen is all of the things that relates to the hardware on this board, things like the drivers for the barometer, the fact that it's got an STM32F7, I think it's an F722, I'm pretty sure. All of that stuff gets flashed with the generic target, but there are things about this flight controller that don't get assigned. And the question that we're asking, and those things get assigned when we apply custom defaults. And the question is, why don't we do that assignment automatically? And the answer is that if you were designing your own flight controller, then you might not want to apply custom defaults. You might want to, so if we go in here and we do a dump, what do we got here? Oh, hang on. Damn. It didn't wipe my configuration. I have to wipe my config. Now the defaults have been applied. Damn it. Well, I'm not going to flash it again. It was not as easy to do that demonstration as I had hoped. So if you were designing your own flight controller, then you would want to flash the target, but then you might not want to apply the custom defaults. You might want to manually go into the CLI and type those lines in yourself. Before Betaflight had all these targets defined, when the generic target system was first being rolled out, you would download a CLI dump from the manufacturer. You would flash the flight controller with the generic target. You would download a CLI dump from the manufacturer, and you would manually paste it in. Well, that's basically what's happening when you apply custom defaults. The real answer is that almost always you will apply custom defaults. Only if you are doing some deep troubleshooting or if you were a developer could I imagine you not wanting to apply custom defaults. Nevertheless, they give you the option to do it if you want to. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask a Betaflight developer if there's some obscure reason why you might not want to apply custom defaults. In my opinion, it's just if you're developing a flight controller, I would say. Let's see here. Ooh, there's some heated, some warmish discussion about the availability of KISS Ultra flight controllers in the chat. Bubby and Crunked are going back and forth. Bubby says, I fly KISS, I would totally fly Ultra, but I don't want to stay up till 3 a.m. to press buy before they go out of stock. Crunk says, weird, I've never had to do that. I buy them just like everyone else. Well, Bubby says, tell me where they are in stock. I'll buy them right now. Crunk says, well, Pyrodrone's a supplier, so is the Vanover store. Join our Discord and pay attention. Those that want them, get them. No, I'm with Bubby. And Bubby says, my point stands. I love KISS, but I don't want to wait for them to be in stock. Yeah, I'm the same way. If in order to get the part, I have to treat it like concert tickets. You know, if it's harder to get a flight controller than it is to get tickets to Bonnaroo, then maybe Bonnaroo wasn't the best choice. I don't know. Does it sell out quickly? Yeah, I don't know about that. If I have to wait up on the Discord server for someone to make an announcement, hey, they're in stock, and then I have to rush over and get them before they sell out, it doesn't really work for me. What is Bonnaroo? Shut up. Really? Y'all making fun of me? You're the ones who are out of touch, not me. Right? It's an enormous music and arts festival. It's an enormous music festival. Attendance 80,000 people in 2015. Yeah, it's an enormous music festival. Oh, whoops. Except it's been canceled the last 2 years because... Okay. Well, anyway. I've never been to Bonnaroo, but I know it exists. What do you think I am, a loser? Abraham, no comment. We're trying to stay monetized here, so I'm going to pass on that comment. F. Reddy asks, what's your take on Popo? Is it worth considering? So for those who don't know, what he's asking about is the Popo quick swap system, which lets you change your props by pressing a button on the end of the shaft instead of taking off prop nuts. And here's my opinion. The system as a whole, its major weakness is that it only works well if the props are made correctly. So it's got some spring-loaded recessed ball bearings that when you push the little D button on top of the shaft down, they are released and the prop can come off. The prop has some little depressions, some indentations in it that engage with the bearings, and that's what holds it on. But the tolerances on Popo props are extremely precise. If the prop's tolerances are too loose, the prop will just come off. If it's too tight, the prop won't go, the little balls won't be able to engage. And what I've found is that when you use luminaire props or HQ props on a Popo system, it usually works pretty well. And when you use anybody else's props, I shouldn't overgeneralize, but when you use anybody else's props, then you end up having a miserable time. The props can rip out. So the prop engages with the ball bearings, and then if you like are turtle moding a lot, then eventually it can rip out and spin. Would it have broken if you had prop nuts? It's impossible to say. But that's a failure mode that you may not anticipate. Whereas with prop nuts, either the prop is on or it's off, right? There's no middle ground. I guess prop nuts can come loose. Prop nuts can come loose. Popo, you can turtle mode and you won't even loosen your prop nuts. Eventually, you might rip out the prop. So there's pros and cons, but I think part of the weakness is that if you don't use well-made props, then you're going to have a miserable time with it. I have run into situations where like a little piece of grit or something gets into the Popo shaft and then it simply will not engage. No matter, like what you usually do is you get like a 2mm driver, you press it down into the shaft, you depress the button, and then you go bam, 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 and then kind of go, and then you hope that the little, and then you take your thumbnail or a screwdriver tip, and you kind of flick the ball bearing, trying to knock the whatever's freaking holding it in. You try to knock it out. So part of the challenge with Popo is that with the original Popo motors had threaded shafts on them, so you could use prop nuts as a backup. But the modern Popo motors don't do that. So they've switched to this style of shaft, which doesn't have any threads, which means that if your little ball bearing gets stuck, F you, you're done flying. Which means that if you want to try a set of props that don't have the little Popo detents, nope, F you. So to me, the pros don't outweigh the cons. Now, I should say, Phantom FPV flies Popo, loves it, and he obviously is a guy who knows his stuff. Phantom FPV, incredibly knowledgeable, has tested and tried so much equipment, and he sticks with it. So don't take my opinion as the gospel, but to me, the cons outweigh the pros. Anyway. No, he's here. He heard me talking about Popo, and now he's in the chat. I knew I was like, his ears are gonna be burning. So I feel like it's possible that Phantom has techniques for keeping his Popo motors running well, and not running into some of the problems that I've run into. I will say I have dealt with Popo. I haven't just. It's not like a situation where like I tried Popo once and then never touched it again. I have gone, I have a fair amount of hours dealing with Popo motors in the field. And so, there you go. All right, so Phantom FPV going to be handing out tips for people who want to get the most out of their Popo motors. But whenever somebody asks about Popo motors, I will always finish my tirade by mentioning you, Phantom, and saying this guy. And the day you get, Phantom, honestly, the day that you stop flying Popo, and I don't want to put a lot of responsibility on your shoulders and like keep you up at night, but the day that Phantom FPV says, I've decided I'm moving on, I'm not using Popo anymore, then when people ask me about Popo, I'll just be like, yeah, no, it sucks, don't use it. No, I won't do that. But it's really you that's keeping me sort of like on the 50-50. And there you go. Alrighty. If you didn't know Popo exists, now you do. They're good motors. Luminar makes them. The Luminar Zips are good motors. Steve Tricks wants to know. Just ordered the Express LRS Boxer. Can I move my models over from my TX16S? No, don't think so. So in order to move models from the TX16S to the Boxer, the way that you do it is you would use Edge TX Companion. You would read the models on PC. Then you would open the models in your Boxer in Edge TX Companion. And the way it works is Open TX Companion and Edge TX Companion, by extension, can convert models between radios. So there's a dialog box that pops up where it says, hey, your radio has switch SG, but this radio doesn't have that switch. So what do you want to do with those models? Currently, Edge TX Companion doesn't support the Boxer. As far as I know, it didn't the last time I checked. Anybody can tell me if it's been updated. I don't think it has. So until the Boxer is supported in Edge TX Companion, I don't think there is a way to convert those models from the TX16S over to the Boxer. I tried copying the models onto the SD card and just powering up the Boxer, and the Boxer goes, what are you doing? And then it just erases all the models and resets itself. So if you're going to move to the Boxer, unfortunately, I think you're going to have to set up all your models from scratch, and it's worth it because the Boxer is a good radio. Bubby says, imagine practicing. Bubby, if you don't practice, imagine how good you could be if you did. Man, I don't know. Just chill. C-Drums, thank you for a $5 super chat. Is KISS really better than Express LRS for long-range flights? No, he means, I see. He means Crossfire. Is Crossfire really better than Express LRS for long-range flights? I mainly fly long-range on Express LRS, wondering how much longer Crossfire flies than Express LRS. Here's the thing, C-Drums. In principle, a 900 megahertz link, apples to apples, is going to go further than a 2.4 gigahertz link. The lower frequency is going to give it more range, all else being equal. However, when talking about long range, once you get far enough to go as far as you want to go, everything else is who cares? So if you fly long range on Express LRS and you go out 20, 30 kilometers and you still have whatever 95 LQ and you're happy, there's no reason for you to then go like, oh, maybe I should do Crossfire. It's only if you find yourself in situations where the 2.4 gigahertz link can't do what you need it to do that you would then start thinking, maybe I need to go to 900 megahertz. For example, one of the things 900 megahertz is good at is like refracting around obstacles just a little bit. Higher frequencies are worse at that. So if you were doing like mountain cruising where you might fly like behind a ridge just a little bit or behind a peak just a little bit, Crossfire would be better at not fail-safing in those situations than Express LRS 2.4 gigahertz. By the way, Express LRS also can be purchased in 900 megahertz. And everybody seems to forget that. So, we're talking about 2.4 gig though. Realistically, 2.4 gigahertz Express LRS can get out to it's been out to 30 or 40 kilometers. I'm pretty sure that at one point they did a 100 kilometer hop on it. They had a really high gain antenna and but they were able to make it work. That's the answer. Crossfire can go further, apples to apples, all else being equal, but as long as you can get what you need out of the link, then there's no reason to think about jumping ship. I mean, by that logic, we should all be running 400 megahertz Dragon Link, and we could go 200 kilometers, and who cares? Your video won't go that far anyway. Daniel Harmon wants to know, do you like your RTX 3080? Yeah. Can you run DRL on the highest settings? Yeah. Now, to be fair, I don't have a 4K monitor, so my main monitor is 2.7K. And a 3080 is a 4K card. So the question is just how many frames do you want to hit, and what resolution do you want to hit them at? If you're willing to run at 1080, like I would feel confident that an RTX 3080 would run DRL at 1080p, easily in the 100 plus frames per second. But I don't know, like for sure I couldn't like quote you a benchmark. Yeah. I mean, if the 3080 is really a 4K card, so on most games on a 3080, I think you would expect to be able to get 60 FPS at 4K resolution. DRL, I don't think is that graphically demanding compared to games doing all kinds of, nonsense with ray tracing and yada, yada, yada. Is RC Test Flight here? No. Somebody said RC Test Flight entered the chat. No, just somebody talking about RC Test Flight. He's such a cool guy. I got to meet Daniel Riley, RC Test Flight. I got to meet him. That's one of my, things I really enjoy about getting to go on Rotorite trips is sometimes I get to go really cool places and meet really cool people who I never would have met otherwise. And Daniel Riley from RC Test Flight, just such a, and people say this all the time, right, about people, but it's so true. Such a cool, humble guy. Just really, really smart. You've seen his channel. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you that. But just really impressed with him. It always impresses me when really, really smart, talented people are also just sort of super humble and down to earth. And it's practically a trope. It impresses me because, like, I am not, like, I don't think a lot of people would call me humble or down to earth. Just is what it is. And then I meet like somebody who I really look up to, and then they're super humble, and then I'm like, how am I going to interact with this person? If you meet somebody and you look up to them and then they're like, yeah, I'm the best, then you're like, yeah, that's pretty much what I expected. And then like I don't have to feel like, how am I going to engage with this? Like they're clearly you meet somebody who's like really you look up to, and they're humble and down to earth, and then you're like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I don't want to be a jerk to you. Right? I don't know. It's if you have a propensity toward kind of being a jerk and being loud, which I do, then it feels safe to be in the room with other people who are also loud jerks. Because probably everybody is going to be so self-absorbed that they're not going to notice that you're being a jerk, and everybody will just kind of have a good time. But then when you end up in the room with somebody who's kind of humble and down to earth and quiet, then you actually have to pay attention to not be a jerk to them and like talk over them. I got that same experience with Nurk, actually. when I first met Nurk. Nurk is actually pretty. It's really easy for me to. It felt really easy for me to like interrupt him or talk over him or kind of be rude to him by accident. And I was like, oh shit, I don't want to be a jerk to this guy. Anyway, what was it? What were we talking about? Yeah, the 3080 is a good card. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. Oh, we got some super chats coming in. Let's get these super chats. Pyro159, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm printing a 10-inch spider-style hexacopter. Don't do that. Don't 3D print. Don't 3D print. Especially don't 3D print giant 10-inch frames. Okay, I've said my piece. Just don't do that. Any recommendations for 8-inch and 10-inch props? When I had my Beast class, I really liked the Gemvan 13-inch props. What are some good 8-inch and 10-inch props? I don't know, man. What are the folks doing? What are the folks running 8 and 10-inch doing? Bubby likes the HQ 8x3 by 7x3. That's not a thing. 8x3 by 7x3, Bubby? 8x3 by 3? Gemfan tri-blades are great. 8 by 3.7 by 3. I see. Yorkie Poo says, my drone team was thinking of an Avata with lights for interior search. Should I build a drone with IR camera on a switch and LiDAR for altitude hold? Yorkie Poo, altitude hold indoors is not going to work as well as you think it will. The problem is... now, hang on. Obviously, altitude hold indoors can work okay. Like, DJI pulls it off. But just putting a LiDAR facing down at the ground is not necessarily going to work really well because you may fly over obstacles and obstructions, which will cause it to climb and descend and so forth. It is, if you are sure that you're going to be in an environment where there aren't things on the ground that would cause the quad to climb or descend, then perhaps that could work okay. But realistically, you probably are going to need the pilot to be actively managing the altitude the whole time. This isn't the question you asked, but what I see people do is they say, I want to be able to deploy these drones out to my team. And my team has all kinds of training that they need to do. They don't have time to become drone pilots on top of all the other stuff they're tasked with. And so then you try to put as much intelligence into the drone as possible so that these guys can pull it out. It can be another tool in their toolkit and it can do the work with minimum training. But the problem is that for the most part, drones aren't smart enough yet to deal with the kind of unpredictable, sometimes chaotic environment that you're describing. And it's usually better to have a trained pilot just flying the damn thing. as opposed to try to rely on automation like optical flow, like LiDAR and so forth. Because there's too much that causes that kind of stuff to just get screwed up. And then it doesn't work. And it doesn't work at a time when it's really, really, shall we say, inconvenient for it to not work. So to go to your actual question, yes, I can tell you that for that kind of stuff, a drone with an infrared camera and an infrared emitter is very effective for that kind of thing. Yeah. I've seen people on YouTube who make sort of improvised night cameras just by buying a FPV camera and then taking the infrared sensor off of it, and some of them will work pretty well with an infrared, like an infrared LED or something like that. So if you're taking a Nevada, now the question you actually asked was, should I get a Nevada with lights or should I build my own drone with an infrared camera on a switch? That's a tough one. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question. I don't know. A Nevada is going to fly pretty well indoors as long as like there's light, you know, and but as soon as the environment gets maybe dark or a lot of debris or something, I don't know how well the Nevada is going to do. Yeah. Yorkie Poo says, I'm on the drone team, so I'd have to fly it. Thank you for another super chat, $2 super chat. Yeah, I think that Bubby says the Avata is very bad in low light. We tried it. There we go. So I think the answer to your question is a home-built FPV drone with being flown in either acro or angle mode by a pilot who has the skill to keep it off the walls and the floor and the ceiling. And then an FPV camera, you can either get something like a Foxy or Cat or a Runcam Night Eagle, which are night cameras. And then if you have an infrared emitter, a big LED, an infrared like an LED or something, or I'm sure you can imagine, come up with something, then that can be effective at what you're asking. Mm-hmm. Anyway. That's a fun question. Say Word, thank you for a $5 super chat. A 2.5-inch TBS Unify Pro 32 Nano 5G8. It worked great on a quick test flight. Went to fly today. The OSD flicker, then black screen. Say Word, a black screen with no OSD usually means that the connection between it, black screen with no OSD, that could be the camera. Sometimes you would get a black screen with OSD, but not always. It could be the connection between the more likely to be the connection between the flight controller and the video transmitter. So the first thing I would do is I would start checking the wiring, and specifically start with the wiring between the flight controller and the video transmitter. Milliamp hour draw says infrared on drones is an FAA violation. That may be, but did you see that he asked about interior search? So I am assuming that he's law enforcement or some other similar thing where the FAA prohibition on infrared emitters is not relevant. But good point. Abraham, good suggestion. Connect the video transmitter directly to the camera and bypass the flight controller and see what happens. Quadcopters in Tech, actually, excellent point. The FAA doesn't regulate indoors at all. If he's doing interior search, then the FAA doesn't apply, although he's potentially going to fly through the outdoors to get to the indoors. Why doesn't the FAA want people emitting infrared? I don't know. Good question. I mean, they don't want people doing all kinds of things. Keenan Barnes, thanks for a $5 super chat. I have the Unify Pro 32 HV. The mic is on, but no sound. Fat Sharks and Ethics earbud. I can hear static at first, and then it goes silent when my quad starts transmitting. Now, that's a really interesting piece of troubleshooting information. Because it shows you that the receiver is picking up the carrier from the transmitter. It shows you that the VTX is sending nothing, but it's not sending static. And that nothing is getting through to the earbud. So the problem has to be the microphone. It has to be that the microphone is not giving audio to the VTX. The Pro 32 has separate smart audio and microphone input bobby bags, I think. Wait, does the Pro 32 have built-in mic? Does it have a built-in microphone? I think it might. No audio input. There's no audio input. Does it have a built-in microphone? Built-in microphone. Oh, okay. So it can't be a wiring issue. Can't be a wiring issue because there's a built-in microphone. So I guess it means it's just broken. Is there anything on the TBS Pro 32 HV that can, like, turn off the microphone? Gotta love the memes. Ghost KJB says yes, but the microphone's on. I mean, Ghost, I don't think we have a lot of options to troubleshoot here. So we know for a fact that the video transmitter is sending an audio signal, and that signal is getting through to your goggles and coming out your earbud. We know that because in the beginning you hear static, and then when you power up the quad, you hear silence. That silence is the video transmitter transmitting nothing. At that point, it has to be the microphone. The microphone is built in, so it can't be a wiring issue. Either the microphone is turned off or the microphone is broken. I don't know what else it could be. I think I would have to go to TBS support to see if they have any suggestions. Or update the firmware on the VTX. Who knows, right? It's worth a try. Maddie O wants to know, will the Walksnail Pro, these new cameras that came out, will they work with the VRX? The new cameras work with any Walksnail video transmitter. So you're good to go there. Gregory Jackson wants a battery recommendation for a 4S250. Well, what I would do is I would start by looking at what battery Tommy recommends. Always go back to the manufacturer and start there. Because they probably know. And he uses a 6S battery. Where are batteries? I guess batteries are electronics. Yeah, so he uses this 380 milliamp hour 6S. So what I want to do is I want to look at the weight of this battery. and it's 62 grams. So we want to shoot for about 62 grams because we don't want to change the weight much. So next thing I'm going to do, we have a 380 milliamp hour 6S. 4 out of 6 is 2/3, right? Obviously. So I'm going to take 380 milliamp hours and divide by 2/3. The equivalent rough 4S battery is a 570 milliamp hour. Now that's probably not a thing. Oh, that's pretty close. That's a 6S, damn. So I would shoot for a 4S in the 550 milliamp hour range, if I could find one. And I would want it to come in around 60 to 65 grams. And that's how I would solve that problem. Then I would just search for one that would be, you know, good quality and that I wanted to spend my money on. Let's see here. We got about 20 minutes left in the stream. Oh. Yeah, okay. So here's a 650. That's a little bigger than I thought. It's a high volt though. That's not a legit 650. Is this one this is not a high volt. So you can't compare milliamp hours if one of them's... Oh, it is a high volt. Sorry. Is the 380 a high volt? Let's look at the weight. How much does this 654S weigh? 63 grams. Okay, that's a fine choice. Really? That's not the right... Okay. I mean, maybe this one. Maybe this 654S would be fine. It's right in the ballpark weight-wise, and it's pretty close to the ballpark milliamp hour-wise. So, there you go. Black Jungle wants to know, is there any way to find out what kind of payload I can carry on a quad? Trying to plan what kind of cameras and sensor suites I can work with when speccing a new science-y stuff build. Black Jungle, that's, I mean, I think that's tough. I think you would start with, like, if you have a pre-built quadcopter that you're adding stuff to, that's not too bad, because you just look at the thrust-to-weight ratio. So, like, for example, like a 5-inch racing drone, each motor might make, say, 1,100 grams of thrust. We have 4 motors, so we have 4,400 grams of thrust. And it weighs, let's say it weighs 750 grams. So the thrust-to-weight ratio is about 5.9. Okay? So we would want the thrust to spec a minimum thrust-to-weight ratio that we were okay with. And then we would take that and sort of, that would tell us how much budget we have for weight to add. I think a thrust-to-weight ratio for a multi-rotor, I think you would want it to be like no lower than... I mean, I feel relatively safe saying 3-to-1. Let's think about that. If 1,100 grams of thrust is a 6-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio, then a 3-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio is half of that. 550 grams of thrust per motor. A 3-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio is roughly half throttle on a typical 5-inch racing drone. Could you fly a typical 5-inch racing drone, never going above roughly half throttle? You couldn't race it, but you could move it around. So let's say 3-to-1 is the floor for your target thrust to weight ratio. How do you find the thrust to weight ratio? Well, you need a thrust stand. You need to know how much thrust your props are making. So you have two ways of approaching this Black Jungle. One is that you test the components so you know their performance and then you work off numbers. The other is that you build something and you add weight to it until it flies bad and you don't like it anymore, and then you know. It's like the joke that Calvin and Hobbes. His dad tells him they test bridges by driving bigger and bigger trucks over it until the bridge breaks, and then they rebuild the bridge, and that's the weight limit. Like, that's one way to approach this problem. There are calculators. Is eCalc still a thing? Yup. So Black Jungle, this is ecalc.ch. And it has calculators. Now, here's the problem with eCalc. At least it was the problem in my experience. eCalc for multi-rotor. I used to have a sign-up. I used to have a sign-in for this. Okay, fine. Part of the problem is that the motors they let you choose were like ridiculously out of date. I don't know if they've been updated. T-motor. Yeah, like... We had the F40 Pro 3. Okay. No, that's not too bad. F40 Pro 4. So what you might consider doing, Black Jungle, is go to ecalc.ch and try to input stuff here that is approximately similar to what you intend to build. And then this will do some calculations that are definitely not 100% correct, but might get you in the ballpark. Yeah. That's something. Emax Eco 2 versus Zing E Pro. Which one is better? Pablo M. Honestly, Pablo, those two are almost a coin toss. Those two are both excellent budget motors. And I don't think you're going to go wrong with either one. Oh. How do you charge the new 8S LiPos? Asks Serenity FPV. You need an 8S capable charger, right? I don't think there's a trick. Daniel Harmon asks, what's good for screencasting software? Daniel, the only screencasting software that I think you should think about is OBS. There are other ones out there. They cost money. There's zero reason to spend money on them, in my opinion. OBS is the de facto standard for screencasting, streaming, you name it. It's like, I thought it was funny because like Linus Tech Tips did a ad read for XSplit, which is a competitor to OBS, a commercial paid competitor. And I know for a fact that Linus broadcasts using OBS. So it's like, okay. OBS is the one to get. It's free. It's got a little bit of a learning curve, but anything does. And any problem that you have with OBS, probably there's a tutorial out there for it. The same reason I like Betaflight. Yeah, Aber the Ham says, the people I've seen flying 8S quads use 4S packs in series. That makes the charging easy. But there have been more and more 8S packs coming out. And if you buy one of those, you're going to have to buy a charger that can charge 8S. So, Kyle Hansen asks, what can I expect if I flash my older quads from 4.2 to the current Betaflight? I haven't flown in a while. I'm looking to re-enter the hobby. Kyle, my advice is that if you have a quad that is flying, especially if it's an older quad where the upgrade to the latest might cause problems for you, just fly and enjoy. 4.2 is not that old. It flies fine. If you're happy and you have a quad you can fly, you should fly it on 4.2. If you decide to upgrade a quad from 4.2 to 4.4, well, first of all, definitely back up the flight controller configuration before you flash it in case you get stuck and need to go back. But you're basically, you should just reconfigure the thing from scratch. There may be new features like bidirectional D-shot. 4.2 supported bidirectional D-shot, but it was relatively new. You're going to have a little bit of a learning curve with new features and stuff, but, they've got a new motor wizard that helps you set up your motor direction, or helps you reverse your motors and set up your motor order. That's really nice. I think it's going to fly better. But I would say, if you're like just getting back into the hobby, just fly your 4.2 quads. Enjoy them. They probably still fly. And like, build one more. Build a new quad on 4.4 and have those other quads to enjoy while you're tearing your hair out trying to get 4.4 working. Maximum effort, you can replace the antennas on that receiver with any 2.4 gigahertz antenna that plugs in. 2.4 gigahertz whisker antenna is fine. You don't need a specific one. An Express LRS antenna. Oh, that's an Express LRS receiver. Yeah, you could use any Express LRS 2.4 gigahertz antenna as long as it plugs in. Kyle Hansen, thanks for a $10 super chat. Sidewalk Chalker 87. Do they make a better immersion RC rapid fire module cover when using the BDI digidapter? Yeah, that's why I always buy TBS Fusion when I'm using the BDI digidapter. That's what I recommend because it fits and looks so nice. I don't know of another module cover for the rapid fire. Presumably we could go look and 3D print something, maybe. So, rapid fire BDI digidapter cover print. Cover 3D print. Let's see. Rapid fire cover. Boom. Oh, boom. Boom, baby. Oh, my Google Foo is strong. Sidewalk Chucker. Dang it. Sidewalk Chucker, this is what you need, my friend. I found it. Woo. Fusion and Rapid Fire do perform basically the same, Bubby. At least they did the last time I tested them. Yeah. Can we get that link? Heck yeah. That's good. We got about 10 minutes left in the stream. Is Siati here tonight? Is he streaming tonight? Noif FPV wants to know. Oh, there he is. Noif FPV wants to know. I'm thinking about getting an Express LRS module for my TBS Mambo. Has anyone had any experience with that combo? The Mambo will work with Express LRS. There are some limitations. What are the limitations? Maybe I'll shut up. I'm not actually sure. I'll shut up. I think there's something to do with the gimbal pulling, but I don't want to be wrong and give out bad information. So we'll let that go. Daniel Harmon, thanks for a $2 super chat. Ciati's going to be streaming after me. I'll be wrapping up in about 10 minutes. Ciati's going to stream on his channel, and he's going to start posting the link. Oh, Captain Bry, good to have you here. Captain Bry's Espresso is developer, so he knows. He says the TBS Mambo is limited to 250 hertz gimbal polling. So if you were running Express LRS at 500 hertz or 1000 hertz, there wouldn't be any point to that on a Mambo. Realistically, I think that a lot of people would be happy with 250 hertz. I find that if you run at 500 hertz or 1000 hertz, the range starts to get a little questionable, at least for my tastes. So I usually run 250 hertz. All right, that's not that bad. So TBS Mambo. Any other gotchas, Captain Bry, with the Mambo running Express LRS? I can't think of one. Remind Me to Build asks, I fly in 3D mode. What does air mode do when flying 3D? The way I understand it is that air mode is sort of a compensation for stationary motors not being able to reverse thrust. Is air mode just moot when flying 3D and just go away? Are there moments in flight when two motors are producing positive thrust while two are producing negative thrust? Okay, so remind me to build. I'll answer your last question first because it has the most clear-cut answer. In Betaflight, when flying 3D mode, all of the motors reverse at the same time. There is never a case where two motors are producing positive and two are producing negative thrust. The PID controller could not handle that. The quad would just freak out. So that's why, for example, if you're going to reverse from positive to negative, you have to center the yaw stick because you can't have the motors going the opposite direction. Air mode being a compensation for stationary motors not being able to reverse thrust. I don't think that's right at all. I see how you get there, but I don't think that's what air mode is doing. It's not that the motor wants to reverse thrust. I mean, I guess if a motor was to go to 0, it's theoretically possible that it could want to go below 0. But it's not going to do that, is the bottom line. In 3D, all of the motors always push the same direction. And when they reverse, they all reverse together. So air mode doesn't really interact with that in that way. Air mode is just going to behave normally, I would assume. I mean, I haven't looked at the code and I don't have a ton of experience with 3D flying. But I would think air mode would work normally, just depending on which direction you were sort of facing, or the motors were pushing. Um, 3D does have deadband, that is correct. Okay. John Goblin wants to know, does your Tyrannus run EdgeTX and actually pull the gimbals at 1000 hertz? Or does it just run at 1000 hertz packet rate? Captain Bry? Does the Tyrannus actually pull the gimbals at 1000 hertz? I mean, it seems like it would be silly for it not to. Alrighty. My Tyrannus only runs 1000 hertz when I adjust the baud rate. That is true. If your baud rate is too low, then you won't be allowed to raise the hertz higher than the baud rate can support. All right, folks, we got about 4 minutes left to go. Somebody asked a really inspiring question. Or we could just wrap up and let Ciati start his stream early. Oh, that'll really throw him for a loop. I'm always running late, but I never start early. I never let him start early. Okay, we got to take this one from Augie in the Discord because he's a patron. Augie says, I'd like to start flying 3-inch quads like the Tiny Trainer, but I only own a DJI Goggle V2. Should I fly analog systems with the DJI Goggle and an adapter module? Should I get an analog goggle for a single 3-inch? What about the Naked Cadix Vista video systems on a 3-inch? Augie, if you're used to flying the DJI V2, I think the option that will make you the happiest would be to build something like a Tiny Trainer with a Naked Vista. I think that the experience of flying analog is not going to, you're not going to love it if you're used to flying DJI. And the experience of flying analog through, the Digidaptor or something is a little clunky and not that great. It's doable, but it's not that great. I think that the direction I'd steer you would be something like a Tiny Trainer with a Naked Vista. Okay. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the stream. We are going to wrap up, and Ciati can start 2 minutes early. Have a great stream, Ciati. Have a good night, everybody. And happy